The time has come once again to speak as witches and wizards do. I'm your host, Daniel and
And I'm Michaela Gaffin-Stone.
We're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to season 2, episode 10. Here there be more dragons.
You can never, ever have too many
That's
dragons.
right. And the reason for this title, dear listeners, is that this one is once again being taken over by another dragon. This will be the dragon I am calling, and she insists on it now because now she likes it, to be called Mama Dragon. And so Mama Dragon will be guiding this episode. And in fact, Michaela can probably share this one. She's already in motion in telling people what to do in this episode.
Yeah, I had a few things I needed to do before we started that I was being very clearly directed to do and admonished when I tried to do it differently. So it's like, okay, sometimes you need to know when to just roll with it. And
Yeah.
this is one of those days.
Yeah. And also for the listeners, you can tell by the intro that I'm a little bit off, but that's because I'm channeling heavily today. So it's leaving me a bit not out of sorts. I still feel good. I'm just worn out. But like I said, today is a dragon driven episode. And I guess we'll start with me sharing my results of the assignment Michaela gave me last week. So, well, because I've learned to give up even more of quick trying to control things, like I said before, did the episode, I was teaching a class today, and the class was ended abruptly by the spirits telling me basically to be quiet. It's now their turn to take over with the rest of the lesson. So my student went off with them, and the class ended, and now they're doing whatever it is they're doing with her. Although I can still feel the channeling because they're still using my energy to do it. So, but I never would have given up that uh, level of control in a class before because
Right.
we were only like half an hour in to what's usually at least an hour and a half class. So I was like, well, whatever. We'll see.
I find there is a lot of power in giving up control, which may sound counterintuitive. In fact, I know it does. But the need to control is utterly draining. And if you're trying to hang on to the reins of something that you
Mm-hmm.
don't understand, then you have to hold tighter because you don't know what direction it's going to move in. And then it's so utterly draining to hang on to that control that sometimes it's just really good to let go and say, okay, I'll just see where this goes and I'll make my decisions then, you know. But trying to control the how of things or the outcome, these are two things you cannot control. There's just like anybody holding on to the reins of either of those things, the horse of how or the horse of outcome, like let it let it run free, let it go, because
Yeah.
you can't hold that.
And it's interesting because I also had a dream a few days ago that matches up with this idea. So basically the premise of the dream was it was time to do what I needed to do. So I get that in the dream, I get this message from whatever spirit it was, and they said, okay, it's time to get into action. And I'm like, perfect, I'm ready to go. I run out of the house. Well, actually, it was at camp. I run out of the cottage. Two magical swords appear in my hands. I'm like, okay, what do we got to do? And it's like, there's a big creature coming this way, a kaiju kind of a thing, like a Godzilla class thing. And I'm like, okay. And the wording was, you have to protect the people. So my brain says, okay, so I don't have to kill the monster. I have to protect the people. It's a very important distinction to be made. between the two. And so basically, right? So a bunch of spirits come, okay, well, you got to get airborne, right? So now normally flying dreams, I have a limit of there are certain visual markers that'll throw me off and then I can't fly any higher. So when I got picked up, we flew by one of those markers and I'm like, okay, I got to get higher because this creature's not like tiny. I got to be like high enough to at least, see it face to face kind of a thing. So I'm going, okay, whatever we do, we do. I'll put the fear aside. Let's go. So then, boom, decent flying dream too because I got past the limit of the heights. I had to be at least like 400 feet up, and I usually kick out before that as far as fears of heights goes. So I end up meeting up with the creature, but it's like a magnificent looking thing. Like we're talking like it's almost like there's an inner fire creeping out through its scales and stuff like that. So like it looked awesome, and I'm like, I said like, and I'm thinking like the orders were protect the people, didn't say kill the monster, so I am not killing it. And then so I'm trying to distract it to get it, I couldn't get it, I couldn't distract it enough. So again, I tried to regain control. Boom, the dream ended. But when I gave up control, I had a spectacular flying dream, loaded with power. I was like, okay, let's go. But then when I tried to control it to make it happen what I think should happen versus what needs to happen, I lost that. And then the dream changed, and then couldn't see the nice, magnificent monster anymore or whatever creature. I woke up. But it felt really good while I wasn't trying to control everything. I was full of
Exactly.
energy, was flying in the air. I was like, all right, let's go. You know, let's do what needs to
Exactly.
be done.
I mean, if you think of any time in your life where you have not felt the need to be in control, right? That you can,
Mm-hmm.
so for a lot of people, that will be when you're on vacation, right? Maybe you can be more lax about the timing of things or the order of things or whatever it is that you usually have a, tight grip on. It's so nice to just put it down and say, I don't have to do this right now. I don't have to be in control. Well, the more you can do that outside of vacation time, then the happier and the more energy you have.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a question of direction of energy, I think, at this point. And if you want to do something useful, and by useful, like whatever your definition of that is, right? But if you want to move the project forward, whether it's your own development, whether it's something spiritual, you have a practice you're working on, anything you want to actually progress with, you can only do that when you let go of what it looks like and let go of the need to control the pace
Mm-hmm.
or the form that it takes because there is a lot more out there in the field of possibilities than you can possibly grasp. So if you try to keep your tight reins, and I don't mean you specifically,
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, but like anybody, if you hang on to those reins and you want to go in the narrow channels that you are aware of, you are missing a world out there that is much bigger and brighter than anything you can conceive of. So you're limiting what you can do and what you can achieve and what you can experience by needing to control. And we get focused in on minutiae of, oh, I need to control this thing and that thing and that thing. And it's stuff. It's nonsense. It's distraction, right? Like in Buddhism, you would call that Mara, where it is distracting you away
Mm-hmm.
from your enlightenment path. It's something that's taking your attention. Christianity has the devil coming and doing tempting. Buddhism has Mara coming and doing tempting. It's whatever term you want to use to identify the things you allow yourself to be distracted with. But make no mistake, you allow it.
Yeah.
Like you're a big part of the distraction. Anybody that scrolls social media on a continuous basis, and hey, I have an issue with that. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're stuck in that loop of social media, then well, you're stuck in the loop of social media. So do you wish to be there, or are you going to make a different decision? Because you have the power to make decisions, you just don't have the power to control. Like I can't control the kind of stuff that social media puts out there, If I could, it wouldn't look like it looks, but I can't. So what I can control is me and my interaction with it. But you got to know where to hold and where to let go.
Yeah. Because it's one of the things I was thinking about today was how do you be spiritual online? How do you make a spiritual presence online? And so I was looking at different things. It's not that it's impossible because it's another medium in which you can share something.
Mhm.
So it's doable. But it's funny because you weren't on the call this morning, but when you see it, one of the assignments that we're given is to take a reel from Instagram and then remix it. And so, the whole thing is find a reel you want to remix, that'll help, that'll show, what you're about. So I put in spiritual in the search bar, and 75% of it is basically religious stuff, which,
Mm.
as I say, religion can get you into the door, but don't stop at religion when you're trying to be spiritual. Religion eventually will become a noose around your neck if you keep it when you're trying to go into the depths of your spirituality, because it's your connection to the universe, not someone else's. Like I said, you can start there and it'll get you into the door, but don't stop there. So for me, I'm like, most of it's that, or it's people. Then you got to get through the conspiracy theorists, and then you got to get through the. It's not that there weren't people sharing good stuff, but it's like there's so much that is just like draining on
Yes,
your resources to trying to be spiritual. But you have to go through those things to get to where you want to go. You have to follow the path, no matter how rocky, to get to the destination.
you do. And as far as religion goes, I definitely want to go there for a moment.
Yeah.
And yes, I know it's controversial. And it's only controversial because people are insecure about it. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not insecure, you don't need to get upset when somebody says something that questions your religion or
Mm-hmm.
even disparages it. It's like, okay, it says a lot more about the person talking than it does about your religion
Yeah.
if you think about it. Unless, of course, you're insecure in where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a recent interaction, shall we say,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of had religious
Right.
connotations. And I was really thinking about it. So the situation is this. We're looking to sell the house that we're
Right.
in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a few people now, and I pay attention when it comes from several directions.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few people now say, oh, you need to get a statue of St. Joseph and bury it in the front garden, and
Mm-hmm.
St. Joseph will sell your house for you.
Right.
So I thought about that and I was like, well, that's a very religious thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure that I can do that. And so I really sat with it for a bit. And then I suddenly had this veil move and I was like, oh, okay. It's just witchcraft. It's the same thing. It's still a spell, right? It's a different deity and you're
Mm-hmm.
performing a ritual and the prayer is also a spell. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? It's exactly the same thing, actually. You're expressing a desire and an intention from a higher power. It's
Yeah.
precisely the same deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was then able to say, oh, okay, now I understand. Okay, now I can use this from that perspective of
Mm-hmm.
this is a ritual. And so then, I found some crystals to go with it as well to enhance the power.
Right.
This we haven't performed it yet, but when I do, I'll let you know, and then we'll do like a little countdown to see how long it takes for the house to move.
Right.
But I'm very interested to see what the power of that ritual is. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
as with all magic, the intention that you bring to it and the
Mm-hmm.
focus that you give it is all powerful. Now,
Yeah.
anybody that's staunchly Catholic, first of all, they're probably not listening to us, right?
Yeah.
But if you happen to have stumbled across us
Mm-hmm.
and you're actually still listening, then why would that make you feel uncomfortable? What is the concern that comes up? I invite you to consider that because religion is man made.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was not a Christian.
No, that's the big one.
And it's a fact.
And
Jesus
you
wasn't a
know,
Christian.
it's interesting. I kind of want to touch on that for a second, if you don't mind. Because, like, so I was raised Catholic, okay? But I got out of it on, the minute I actually started sitting and paying attention, that's when I got out of it.
Right.
But yes, the whole thing of, like, to my understanding, from listening in class, like when we did, catechism, the French way of going through it is not the same way as the English way of going through it. So there's kind of wording and stuff issues that don't work. I don't know how it is for other languages, but I know from having experience with both French and English, it's the ideas are the same, but the presentation is not. But yeah, to my understanding, Jesus never asked for a new religion. Jesus just
Correct.
wanted people to
That's
get
my
their stuff in
understanding.
order. That's it. So to me, that's one of the big things. It's like, okay, well, first of all, no one asked for this shit. So pardon the language, but no one asked for this. So why is there all these denominations? Why are there all these changes when it wasn't asked for? My understanding that it was Saul that wanted to make a change, if I understand correctly. But like I said, I'm not a biblical historian, so I don't know if that's true. But that was my understanding. It was one of the apostles that wanted to make a change to differentiate. But
So I also have that understanding of it
mm,
actually, but also it's man-made, it's
mm,
man-altered, it's man-controlled, and it's to control people.
mm,
That's what it is has been used for centuries. So the more control that goes into that, the less spirituality there actually is. Now, I'm not saying that somebody who follows religion can't be spiritual, but it's awfully hard.
yeah,
Possible, but you have to really do battle with the constrictions that are placed
mm,
around you in whatever religion it is. There's good ideas in all of them.
mm,
And I have actually spent time investigating all of them at some point. I
mm.
even went into a Baha'i temple
Oh yeah.
and, and was there for a ceremony. And in the interests of being um, a
Mm,
little politically correct, I'm not going to
mm,
share my views on it. But you know, I was there for a while
mm,
and experienced that. But basically, those who are leaders of the main theologies anyway,
right.
what that one thing they have in common is that none of them particularly wanted an established religion. In fact, that was what they were arguing against, typically speaking.
Mm,
So that's a point. But going back to the issue of control, which is the bigger
mm,
point, if you look at religions, how they show up now, and even, you know, go back to the Spanish Inquisition or any of those times, Crusades, all of these, it was an effort to impose one group's will
mm.
on the others and to control.
Yeah.
And this is far from spirituality. This is moving you completely away from spirituality. And human beings are not reasonable, but human beings are reasoning.
Mm,
So we can reason our way into things and
yeah.
say, well, this makes sense, and I have to do this because da 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 da. But that's not reasonable. It's reasoning,
Yeah.
which is not the same.
Yeah. Because, I would say my guidelines for people who stay in their religions is simply this. If there is someone who says there's an intermediary between you and the source of the divine thing you're looking for, that's control. The person between you and the divine can be someone acting as a voice for the divine while you can't hear the divine. But the goal should never be you're permanently stuck listening to this person over your connection to the divine, whatever you're to that divine thing you're looking for. Once there's gatekeepers between you and that's when you know it's time to get out of that religion. That's
Yeah,
be my
I think
suggestion, because
that's
there's
the
a lot to
key.
be learned, right? Eh,
Gatekeepers are the
Yeah.
key. If you have gatekeepers and people telling you how to think and what is okay and what isn't, and they don't brook questions,
Mm,
that's the other thing is if you can't question that, okay, if you can't question, it's time to leave. It's time
yeah.
to run in the other direction because something that can't be questioned
Mm,
is inherently a problem.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'll even give you from the wizardly perspective. So I'm going to put out there that you're probably familiar with the Metatron.
Yeah.
So the Metatron is the voice of God because no one can hear God's voice directly. That's not a bad concept because in my own channeling practice, there are spirits that are harder to channel than others. And therefore, sometimes it's easier to have an intermediary, or at least an intermediary spirit, kind of, to kind of power down, transform down the spiritual pressure, for lack of a better expression, until you hit a level you're familiar that you can cope with. That, because I bring it up because I don't want people to confuse those two concepts.
Okay. Yeah.
That there's there's things that you can't deal with directly because either you're not adapted to it yet, you can't withstand the spiritual pressure of it. I don't know if I like that word, but it's basically
That works.
yeah. So until you can hit that,
How about intensity?
yes, until you can deal with the intensity of the interaction, you need an intermediary. But
Right.
that's not to stop you from, but it's not meant to be a permanent position unless, like, we all have our limits, right? So there's always, in because every lifetime teaches us something new. So there's always going to be levels of spirituality we can't achieve in one lifetime. So if you can't get directly to the source of the thing you're looking for directly, don't worry about it. But I generally say when you're running into a human gatekeeper, that's when there's a lot of issues.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between having an intermediary and having a gatekeeper. It's
Yeah.
not the same energetic signature. It's
Mm.
it's not the same intention. It's not the same outcome. Like
Right.
it all shifts kind of sideways and has a murkiness about it.
Yes.
I do tend to get kind of visual about these things, but a gatekeeper's very murky and sort of muddy, whereas an intermediary is an open, bright conduit
Mm.
that is simply going to take the intensity and reduce the volume
Right.
so that it's something that you can access. You know, and if you think of sound frequency,
Mm-hmm.
dogs can hear a certain level that humans can't hear. If you alter the frequency, it will become accessible to humans.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's just a simple shift, but it's one that needs to happen in order for you to be able to receive that. It's a frequency match, right?
Yeah.
Um, and someone did Tina did a session on tuning
Yeah.
forks.
Yes.
Same day I did one on human design. And
Mm.
what she showed us was if you have two tuning forks that are of the same vibration, if you strike one, the other will start to vibrate. But if you have two that are different, you strike one, the other one doesn't respond because it's not receiving, it's
Right.
not picking it up.
Yeah.
And those are some illustrations of
Mm-hmm.
how,
Yes. A
you
very
know,
physical demonstration of it. Yes.
right.
Absolutely.
And it's something that you can see. I mean, look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen this yet,
Mm.
but you can see how vibration matters. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're not in the right vibration to receive that intensity, then you need something to calibrate
Yeah.
that for you. That is not gatekeeping. That is categorically not the same thing.
Yeah. Like for me, because the first time I was shown that, the spirits I was working at the time were like, oh, you want to work with something that's, more powerful than us? I'm like, yeah, sure. They're going, okay, well, let's test this first. And then so they brought in something that was even bigger, that more powerful than them or higher intensity. And it was like, okay, that hurts. And I started trying to channel it, like, this is very unpleasant. Let's go back. Okay, now I get why I'm working with you guys first. I see it. I see the levels of they got to graduate through to be able to, because it's not, when you if you grow up playing role playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, or you watch sometimes, you'll see it in fantasy movies and stuff like that. You'll get the impression that you have to follow certain levels, like in a strict school like fashion, but it's not that. It's your ability to process the energy in the real world. It's the ability to deal with the intensity. And yeah, and it would be helpful if you have the you call it the maturity to go with it. That would be awesome. but there's no game mechanics in play in that sense. It's just whatever you can tolerate is what you can do. If you can't tolerate it,
Yeah,
you
it's
can't do
not
it. Or
linear.
you can do it. Yeah.
It's not linear, and there aren't boxes to tick so that you can say, okay, I've ticked all the boxes, now I can do X.
Hmm.
It's not, that's very physical, it's very,
Right.
you know, earth plane kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And this is the only place it works like that. When you get into spiritual things, it's a completely different environment. And I think we often try to take what we know already and apply it to something that we cannot know and make it make sense. And it's completely unhelpful to do that. You're wasting your time and energy again. It's like taking a bouquet of flowers and throwing it into a volcano and then expecting something to
Hmm.
happen, that has to do with flowers. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't. The two things are
Yeah.
not compatible.
You know, it's funny because I've been contemplating those things all week where things have to match up. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
so to my understanding, like I said, because I was taught independently by spirits and allowed to touch on things here and there, sympathetic magic works the way it works because it matches.
Hmm.
You you want to do B, so you got to find something that is harmonious with B to act as a catalyst to get B, basically. Much in the same way, if you want to do a circuit, you have to find a material that can channel the electricity for you in a way that you need. So you have to take things that are compatible to make an effect happen. This works spiritually as well.
Hmm.
Am I-
That's a good
Yeah.
explanation. Yeah, I like that.
But it's funny,
Right.
and I've lamented this before. I use lamented in quotes. It's the I shouldn't lament because being directly spiritually trained is pretty much what you're shooting for. You're getting stuff from the source. You don't, but you do miss out on what everyone else is doing, and you miss out on what the general conversation is from the non-spiritual perspective of how people get into spiritual stuff. Because like even teaching it, right? I'm trying to think of getting in my own way, of course.
We all do that, yeah.
Yeah. How do I convey what was not necessarily completely unique to my experience because other people have gone through this too? And how do you get it to bring someone into that level of understanding when they only have the general population's understanding of a subject? So then you got to kind of figure out, how do I bring someone? I'm lucky in this instance that the topic I'm teaching, the people who come to me are usually spiritual enough to be influenced so that the spirits can kind of bridge the gap for me by making things happen, or at least making them see things or sense things. But and it's funny because even looking at it that way, it's not my job to take someone from 0 to 100. Like I'm
Mhm.
working with people who are like at least at 25. Like they're
Funnily
already
enough,
kind of having an interaction with the world in that way as it is.
I was going to ask you that question, like, because, funnily enough, in the online space, there are people who um, seem to feel that it is their responsibility or their role or, whatever, to take people who are not on a spiritual path and,
Right.
and kind of pull them onto one,
Mhm.
get them going. And I have never particularly vibed with that, funnily enough. Um, and I was going to ask you, but you answered the question for me as to what that looks
Mhm.
like for you. Because my perspective is you can only speak to somebody who's ready to hear.
Right.
And so, trying to, yelling at people to
Mhm.
wake up and, see the things. It's like, why are you yelling? There's
Yeah.
no point. It's
It
like using
doesn't.
a
Yeah.
dog whistle and expecting people to respond to it. It's
Yeah.
just, why are you yelling? You're again throwing energy into the void
Mhm.
that you could do better things with. But it's also, it's it's not your responsibility, you being general,
Right.
it's not one's responsibility to take over somebody else's path
Hmm.
and make them, if such a thing was possible, um, be be awakened, be heading on a spiritual path. Like it's not your role or responsibility. It's a
Right.
massive overstep, and that takes me straight back to religion. It's a massive overstep of one person's control over another person's life and their
Yeah.
patterns. And when you look at the religions who have very strict rules about how things are done and when and where and da da da, you're getting into a significant level of control that I would say raises a lot of flags, a lot
Mm.
of concerns there. And I would question the people who feel that they have that control. Like, how do you have that? Why? Who gave it to you? What are you doing with it? And are you prepared to deal with the fallout?
Well, that's it. Like we discussed before, right? It's the once you try to take over someone's flow, you're responsible for that flow, and you've already got your own flow to work with. So now you're diverting your own energy from your flow to try to control someone else's flow. It's it becomes untenable at a point where you can't maintain both your growth and someone else's growth.
It's a hugely problematic thing to do from so many levels because then you get into the discussion of free will.
Hmm.
Okay, what happened to free will in that equation? If you are the more adept of the two
Hmm.
people, then but let's assume it's just two
Hmm.
people for the moment. If
Right.
you're the more adept person and you exert control over the lesser developed person, then that's a big role right there that you get saddled with a whole heap of responsibility, take it or no, it's still there. And I personally, I wouldn't want to deal with the fallout from that. Thanks a
Hmm.
lot.
Yeah.
That's like, no, that's a big thing, and I don't want to be paying that for the next
Hmm.
few lifetimes.
Well,
That's no.
that's the thing because there is a big price to be paid.
Oh
Like
yeah.
at the risk of stretching some of our credulity or credibility a bit, part of when I was doing well, even teaching now, part of doing my work invisibly, because I've changed from doing it in the shadows to just doing it invisible, calling it doing it invisibly, is that, for lack of a better way of expressing it, is I picked up some of the karma debt until the person, so I can push people through stuff. It goes back to them eventually once they understand things, but I pick up the karma debt at the moment for a little bit so they can try stuff. Just like a parent is responsible for when the children mess up, similar concept. So when people screw up
Hmm.
karmically, it's my bad until they learn how to deal with their behavior, and then it goes back to them and they can deal with it. But at the time, I deal with it.
Yeah, it's a responsibility thing.
So yeah, all right.
It's it's such an
Mama Dragon says
interesting
that's enough
concept.
on that for you on that one.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Yeah,
concept, but I think all of what we've said so far goes back to control and
yeah,
not needing to have it.
right. And it's funny because I'm thinking about my example I gave you when I said, like, when a parent is responsible for a child, what the child does, the parent is responsible for it for till a certain age, and then the child becomes responsible for their behavior. Because it always, I know better by now, but it still always amuses me how to use the expression so above, so below, how much everything is connected directly, even if it's not exactly the same, even if it doesn't have the same face, the functionality is still the same. Like when I teach, I'm still adopting a parent's role, so the student gets a bit of leeway, like a child does, until they can go out into this to deal with spirits on their own and not make mistakes.
Mirrors.
Yeah. So, but that concept is interesting. That because I keep finding it over and over again. The deeper I work in the spirit world, the more I find that those connections are still the same. Like I said, different face, but still the not karma. The concepts are the same. Any concept you can find here in the material world, you can find it in the spirit world. It just looks different.
Okay, that's going to be something for people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah.
But if they're still listening to us, then chances are they're doing some
Yeah. Well,
pretty good
you
rapping
know,
anyway.
yeah. Well, one of the reasons, eh, I was thinking about social media and being spiritual is that one of the things I have to do, because whereas like, I'm not actively going to someone and say, hey, you need to train with me. But I have to leave the signs for the spirits to tell the people that they're working with to go, okay, this is where you need your training. So I have to leave the breadcrumbs, the social media breadcrumbs for people to see that it's available. That's been my if you will, it's been one of my difficulties for the last several years is the trying to figure out, okay, how do I don't want to overstep into saying, hey, you have to come train with me with the here's stuff you can learn. And then if you want to train, you can come and check out training.
Maybe the
Yeah,
piece that's missing is the why they want to learn.
yeah,
What will the benefit, what's the purpose to them learning it? Because human beings are
hmm
wired to do things that they think will be pleasurable, that will be fun, that will be positive. We don't do anything that we think is going to suck. I mean, we
that's
truly
right.
don't. There are people who will say, well, I sacrificed myself for da da da. You only did it because you've got off on that, right? Like, seriously,
You
that's
get something from the situation you're
you
in.
get something from it. It's
When you stop getting it, you're gone.
you get that
Mm-hmm.
self-satisfaction of, look at me, I'm such a good person. I sacrificed my time to do
Mm-hmm.
X. I've come across this in charity work
Mm-hmm.
a lot, and it's like, no, that's a transaction. That's not really charity, but that's a different discussion. Yeah, it's interesting, but people typically need to know what's in it for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why would they want to do that? So you could tell them, well, I can open the doors to spiritual learning and what have you,
Mm-hmm.
but why do they want that? And do they want that?
Yeah.
Because it
Well,
can
that's
be
the thing, right?
intimidating. It can be scary and
Yeah.
intimidating.
Yeah. And that becomes that was my big issue on how to market what I'm doing because I'm not here to tell you what to do, but if you want to do it, come see me because it has to be from them, the desire.
Right. But they have to know
Yeah.
that they have to know about it. It has to be
Yeah.
articulated in a
Yeah.
way that they can say,
hmm
oh, that's what I've been looking for, because
hmm
they might not have the language for
That's
that
right.
to
hmm
know what it is. And also, there's a lot of misconceptions to sidestep. And that can be
Yes.
so interesting. I mean, I came across somebody who was really, presenting something and doing a fantastic job, and it was really, really cool. But then he said, I don't let just anybody into this room. And two people wanted to join who were into witchcraft. And
hmm
I won't have any of that dark stuff in here.
Uh,
And I kind of sat there like, oh, I was never asked the question.
yeah.
Um, but it just interested me that somebody who is intelligent,
hmm
accomplished, and a whole heap of things also carries this view of, something that he clearly
hmm
doesn't have any understanding of whatsoever. Otherwise, he would know that, it's all witchcraft when you come down to it,
Yeah.
right from St. Joseph on out. It's all using energy to supplicate the deity that's appropriate for the event, or the force of
hmm
nature that's appropriate for the
Yep.
event, which you could say is a deity also.
hmm
And the language is you're choosing, but what you're doing is it's all the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just interesting that some things have such a damning kind of reputation that people freak out. And you have to sidestep that when you're trying to reassure and have them understand that,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to turn you into a toad. And, you're not going to, I don't know, your head's not going to drop
Yeah.
off, or whatever it is they
Yeah.
think you're going to do to
hmm
them. I assure you, if witches had that kind of power, the world would look kind of different right now.
Well, that's the thing, right?
There'd be a lot of toads.
Yeah. Well, it's also, the it was a common question for a while. If the witches at the witch trials were really witches, why did they burn?
Yeah,
Why did they
and that
protect
of
them?
course it wasn't a witch trial, it was a woman trial. It
Yeah,
was just it was used to keep women very
right.
firmly trodden down. It was not that was not a real witch trial at all.
Well, that's what.
And there'd be
Yeah.
no point. Witches are the ones who do the healing. They're the ones who know how to use
Well,
herbs and how to create medicine to fix people. And typically in those times, you would have somebody healing people.
mm,
Somebody'd get jealous about that, call them a witch, and they'd end up getting burnt. It's like, well, that's what you
well,
do to
yeah.
doctors, okay?
I think we discussed this before, but because I'm pretty sure I had mentioned this that there was a period where the church couldn't care less if there was witches running
Right.
around. They didn't care. It was only when the church started to lose its popularity that it started to matter that
Yeah,
witches were
control.
around. So yeah, it comes back to control
Absolutely.
again.
It's control, like they're a threat now. And
Hmm.
that was something we see it repeated over and over. And it's in one way or another, we see that repeated. And so many people are afraid of witchcraft. And if you tell someone that you're a witch, like if you feel the need to do that,
Right.
which typically I don't, but if you
Hmm.
if you did do that, they're likely to sort of, oh, I don't believe in witchcraft. And then you just sort of say, oh, that's cool. Could I have a little bit of your hair?
Yeah. We'll see how much you don't believe in it. Give me a piece of your hair.
Yeah, just give me a little bit of your hair. Or,
Yeah.
oh, look, I have a thread from your clothing,
Yeah.
and then watch them freak out.
Yeah.
But so those superstitions linger. And
Yeah.
in the spiritual realm, you have to kind of do a little dance around all of
Mm.
those things to get to the people who are ready to hear what you have to
Yeah.
offer.
And that's the thing.
An
So
intricate dance you've got to do, I got to tell you.
yeah. Well, because I mentioned it in the one that, or was it the flow? No, which episode was it? Where we basically, oh yeah, the weaponization of victimization, where we both got let our language be colorful. Yeah, like I
Hmm.
said, the whole point of the podcast is to get people away from all these ideas of spirituality and awakening spiritually that are just really another form of being controlled, but people don't realize it. So, like I said, like open your third eye. Well, that's not the only thing that you rely on. Like, if that's the only thing you're focusing on, then you're still in the mud. You haven't come out of the mud to see the light yet. You're still stuck. You're just using the trappings of being spiritually awake and declaring yourself spiritually awake. But it's
Yeah.
funny. It's funny, when you bring it up, pretty much every religion has their mystical side.
Oh, they do.
Theoretically, their religion is the mystical side, but the way religion has evolved today, at least Christianity for sure, it's the even when you do have something like putting statue of Saint Joseph to sell a place, like that, it's a ritual. It's totally a ritual, but it's disguised as something else. It's just like all the old ladies around here put their prayer beads on the window or on their door handle to keep, so the next day when they want to go do an event, it doesn't ring. Like these guys are all like doing rituals and casting spells. Like, don't you see it? Like, how do you
Well,
not
that's the
see it?
same. That's the same as witches' bells
Yeah.
on the door. That's the same thing.
Yeah. And that's what I
And it
mean. Like
probably
people,
came from there, right?
yeah,
That's the thing, is it probably came from there because
right.
if you look at religions, they take from the environment
Hmm.
and make it their own so
Right.
that people will come. And a wonderful example of this is Tibetan Buddhism. It's so
Mm-hmm.
different to Theravada Buddhism, which is, I think of saffron robes
Hmm.
and lots of studying and what have you. That's Theravada, and it's typically in the lower land countries
Hmm.
such as Sri Lanka and Thailand, and think like that.
Hmm.
Tibetan Buddhism, it's up in the mountains,
Hmm.
and their religion is millennia old, but the religion that came before it was the Bon religion,
Yeah.
and Bon is animal spirits.
Hmm.
And so Tibetan Buddhism said, hey, that's really cool. Let's use that. And so they incorporated that into Buddhism, which is why Tibetan Buddhism looks so different to Theravada Buddhism, for example. It's Mahayana Buddhism for Tibetans. And it's very animalistic.
Right.
And you look at the drawings, the depictions and so on, very animalistic. And this isn't a known thing. Like they don't hide it, they don't pretend it's different. The difference is when you come to the more Western religions, they pretend that that's not the case, but it is. All the religions take from what was there before and integrate it. I mean, a Christmas tree with lights,
Mm.
hello, winter
Yes.
solstice,
Mm.
and bringing
Yeah.
in the sunshine so that you have the spring coming. Like yeah, these things are not new. None of it's new.
Yeah. You know, so Mama Dragon wants us to acknowledge the contribution of dragons to adding to the wisdom of humanity's spirituality. And I could agree with that because that's what she's doing for me right now. So, but it's interesting. I guess not a history lesson because we're not going to sit here go through dates and name people and stuff like that. But she wants to put forth the idea. You know what? And I agree with her because when I say the thing about having a gatekeeper that prevents you from attaching to the source of what you're trying to communicate with, she's not going to completely let me say it that way. So is she saying it in the beginning? Not, yeah, I guess in the beginning is the wording. Trying not to stretch her credibility here too far.
Oh,
As
I think
the
we blew that
podcast.
out of the water a few episodes ago.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. So she's speaking specifically for dragons. They help teach a lot of people into learning to be spiritual and how to connect with higher powers. And so her beef with religion specifically is that like you could have a religion and you could say you're calling upon this, like in this case, Saint Joseph, but it's not Saint Joseph responding.
No, correct.
It's someone else. It could be a dragon, could be another spirit.
Correct.
She's okay with that.
Yes, I
She's
go with
dragon
that.
centric. She's dragon, so which would make sense. She's a dragon, right?
Uh-huh.
You're going to be centric to what you are. That's
Yep.
totally well within. So she's saying from the dragon perspective, like we've taught stuff. There's a reason why dragons and serpents are from a spiritual perspective around the world is because they had a heavy influence in spiritual development. So talk about not trying to control something. Every part of my brain is saying, don't share this on the podcast episode. But whatever. I am she's speaking. It's her episode to say what she wants. And I don't disagree, to be honest with you. I would assume the reason why we have such high esteem for dragons is that dragons had a role. And even though we've made alterations to the roles of dragons, their appearance, their you name it, we've made some alterations to suit our fantasies over the reality. But she's saying before you hit religion, before you start using the names of deities you were taught, look at
Hmm.
what the spirit actually, there you go. Look at the spirit you're actually working with. And this is true because this is my big beef. It's the listen, before you start spewing or before you start doing your prayers or whatever and you're naming deities, I'm like, there's a good chance that deity, if they exist, didn't say to you, hey, you can use these rituals.
Oh no, no, no.
Like
It's
if you
it's
want
an
to look at it from a spirit,
accessibility. It's
yeah,
it's an accessibility portal to
right?
have the name, and when you have the intention that has been put onto it
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly, it takes on that power. So if you want to then access that particular stream of power, the name of that portal that's been created is a gate.
Right.
It'll open. So with the St. Joseph thing,
Mm.
I didn't even know it was a thing until recently. Like I'd never heard of it.
Well, you
And
can
now I
have a
just,
saint. There's saints for everything. I'll give
oh,
you an
I know
example.
that,
Yeah.
but I didn't know about this particular thing or that it
Yeah.
was a thing. When I started looking to buy one,
Mm-hmm.
I found there were realtor packs. Like people can
Oh
buy
yeah.
property at the same time. it fascinated me. So this is a well-kept secret, if you will,
Mm,
but people know it. And so over the years, and this has been going for a long time, as
mm,
far as I can tell, people have been pouring their intention into
mm.
this
Yes.
and directing their focus and sending their spells, which is their prayers, into this direction. So what you have is just like you create neural
Mm-hmm.
pathways, you
Mm-hmm.
have this pathway that's been created.
Yes.
And the question is, how can you access it authentically? And for me, I needed to be able to step away from the religious aspect of it and
Mm-hmm.
just say, oh, okay, so this is exactly what I just said. It's a gateway to that particular path of energy. And I
Yeah.
understand that now. I can do that.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because that's a very big thing, as you know, it's a very big thing in any magical practice. It's not so much the words, the rituals, the movements. The movements can be because it depends on right how the energy flows through your body. That kind of thing is relevant.
Depends on what you're
But
doing. Yeah.
yeah, like as I like to say, you don't know what you're calling upon. Luckily for most people, what you're calling upon is already a group of spirits that are already working with you to begin with, and they'll fill in those gaps for you. Unless you actually do legitimately like it's a hard thing to say because my usual default response is if you're calling on something, it's probably something that's working with you. Unless there's an entity specifically that has authority amongst the spirits in your area to be in charge of that. And then it may prevent your spirits from doing the thing or whatever. Like there's still hierarchies, but not hierarchies in the sense of one is, above. This is in the podcast, right? When I talked about in the beginning, in the first season, I said, look at gods as like a member of parliament. Here's your minister responsible for medicine. That doesn't mean it's the best doctor. It's
Right.
the person you talk to. And odds are they're going to have an interest and they're going to have some already level of understanding of that topic, but they just basically are the person you go to
Hmm.
for that topic. And it's the same thing in the spiritual world. It's still raked out that way. So basically, the spirits usually agree. Okay, that's the one. If we need to do something, we'll talk. But see what's going on because they're the minister responsible for that particular thing, and we'll check with them just to see what they're doing. Okay, you pull the.
Which,
Want me to pick?
which do you
Hmm.
select?
All right.
One,
Let's.
two, three.
I want to pick one.
Okay. You picked the lovers.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what the significance of that is for right now, but it's
All
there.
right. I'm gonna write it down.
Hmm. So
Dead air
Danielle,
time. The best thing about a podcast.
I was going to
While I
say,
write down.
I was just going to explain that while we're quiet, Danielle's just writing down
Yeah.
the
Go
card
ahead.
that I
You can still say it
felt
though.
to pull.
Yeah. So you felt the urge again? You felt the urge again or the push again to pull out some cards?
Yep, yep, yep.
Interesting.
And
I
there are,
figured something like this would happen because I was like, I'm tired and we can skip today if really want to. But then when she told me she was in charge of this episode, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it even though I'm tired and we do have some episodes banked, but I'll still do this one. So
okay, so dragons are masters of balance and
mhm.
harmony, especially when it arises from the joy of finding the other half and forming a whole greater than its parts.
Right.
So that alone can be very interesting in the
Mhm.
search for where you want to be, your mirror
Right.
half in the spiritual realm,
Mhm.
any of those things. Um, as the Chinese proverb says,
Mhm.
love is not about possession, it's all about appreciation.
Yes.
So I think as romantic as the lovers seem at first
Mhm.
blush, remember that love is varied and expansive. Your destined union is not necessarily a romantic one.
Right. That one I'm very familiar with, that concept.
Hmm. So that's
Yeah.
I see that though. It's like it might not be whoops,
Hmm.
chair wants to
Yeah.
send me to the floor. It might not be how you envisage, or it might not be what seems obvious, but the path is
Hmm.
there.
Well, that's the other thing, right? Following the assignments you gave me, I am also not like, because now that I'm coming out of burnout and all, and I'm starting to kind of, what do you call it, deal with all the things that I've let fall to the wayside to do what I did, the urge to be in a relationship has come up. But I'm
Oh,
like, I'm not forcing anything. What happens, happens. I am totally going on with the Michaela philosophy on it because I'll be honest with you, I don't want to jump into a relationship being pushed and prodded all the time
hmm. It
by whatever the
doesn't
forces of the
work.
universe. It either has to harmonize or it doesn't. And I'll accept it not
Exactly.
harmonizing if that's the case.
And dragons are balance and harmony.
Yeah. So,
So, again, when people talk about slaying their dragons, they might want
yeah.
to rethink that.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like once
Please
I
don't
started
slay
working
your
with dragons,
dragons.
yeah, actually, even it's funny. I'll share. This is what I wasn't allowed to share these things the last time the dragon was on, but we had a dragon. But this one I'm allowed to share this time out. My first real deep time to work with dragons, I was in my early 20s or mid 20s. And I had gotten a book on dragons actually, and it even had the wonderful feature of having a dragon alphabet in the back. And the
Oh,
first thing happens when I picked up the book and I started reading, I could feel a presence. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I knew it was a dragon. So I'm reading. I'm like, oh, a dragon alphabet. And the first thing I got was, that's not for you. Don't even worry about it. I don't know if it's not for you because it's bullshit, but in this book. But the thing is, I was reading, and that's actually when I picked up my first, not that particular dragon, but it is when I picked up the first dragon I worked with, was when I got that book. But I don't have that book anymore, so it served its purpose to at least open a gateway.
mhm.
But the dragon, the first that dragon that showed up when I started reading the book was very clear. And I don't work with it anymore, but it was very clear. Like I never worked with it. It was just basically there. It's like you have your introduction to dragons, carry on, move on.
Right.
Don't use this anymore. You don't need it. And then I haven't had communication with that one like I haven't since then. But I have from that one, I've had communication. Well, I still have the dragon that came from that period. I say have. I'm still connected with that dragon.
Right.
Actually, it's interesting because that dragon. So this will be the weird one, and this will be the another one of those stretching the credulity of the credibility of us or me, anyways. That dragon, when I first the dragon I work with now, when I first encountered it, it was newly a dragon, so it was just like a hatchling, if you will, as that's how it presented to me. And then I didn't see it for a while, and then when it came back, it was sort of came as a modified version of the that first dragon. Oh yeah, where'd you get that?
Somebody gave it to me, and one what you can't see, dear
Yeah.
listener, is a dragon in an egg.
Hmm. Yeah. And
So
it's funny,
cute.
yeah, when that small hatchling dragon came back to work with me, it kind of was disguised as the other dragon, but I knew right away. I knew who it was right away. The one size, intensity, spiritual intensity difference. Like I knew right away who it was when it came back. But I was like, why do you look that way now when you looked like what the book would have described as a sun dragon, basically golden and silver in color and like full of lively energy, but it was disguising itself as a dark, brooding, shadowy creature. And I'm like, dude, I can feel you. Like I know it's you. Like, what are you doing? He's dropped the disguise recently, but that was its thing. It
Did
was
it
doing
have a
something.
purpose?
Hmm?
Did the disguise have a purpose?
I'm trying to think. It's a good question because he only recently dropped it.
Well, don't try to think,
Yeah,
just
let it flow. Why?
it'll come. But there must have been
Yeah,
a purpose because
yeah.
nothing happens without one, really.
Well, what I get is that it did it for personal reasons. Like not
Okay.
that I needed it, but it that
It
as it
needed it.
learned from the other dragon, basically, is is my understanding of it. So it emulated the other dragon.
Okay.
And now it's not now it has come in on it to its own.
Right.
So
Well,
now it's
again,
back to its
that's
yeah,
kids and adults, right?
yeah.
Kids follow what the adults model.
Yes. That's pretty much my understanding of it. So for
Okay.
people listening, there is so above, so below. As we are developing, we emulate our parents. Well, so do when a spirit is newly manifested in this world, is the best way I can think to describe it. When it's newly manifested in this world, it's like a child too. It has to learn just like we do
It
when
has a mentor.
right. It has a mentor and it has to learn. So it basically imitated its mentor, but now it's done
Hmm.
imitating its mentor and it's come into itself. So it took it, well, I want to argue not quite 30 years of development as a dragon, but close.
30 of your years.
Yes, 30 of my years. 30 of
Because
the years since yes.
time is absolutely a
Yeah.
human construct.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually.
Well, as I like to tell people, time isn't a thing. There's only the eternal present. And what we experience as time is a consequence of other forces at play.
Oh, I like that.
One of the reasons I say that is if you look at the experiment of when they took two atomic clocks, right? One was on the ground, one was in a plane going at the speed of sound, and they got different times. I'm like, well, maybe it's because the forces at play are different. So,
Hmm.
you're they are not in the same conditions. The one sitting on
Right.
the ground is moving synchronous to the ground, whereas the one in the air is not moving, and it's moving at a greater rate of speed that the ground doesn't have. So I'm not saying that like friction in the normal sense of the word is what delayed the decay of the atomic clock, you know, the decay of the material that they're using. But other forces at play moving at that speed may have had, maybe forces we don't know about. I kind of think of gravity as the same way. We have such an issue with gravity, but maybe gravity is just a consequence of the other forces at play.
Well, gravity is a very interesting
Yeah.
one. That there are other forces at play, whether
Mhm.
people like that concept or not. And the moon immediately came to mind, like people who don't put any store by the phase of the moon and so on, you haven't been paying attention.
Mhm.
And I assure you, as somebody who worked as a psychiatric
Mhm.
nurse for a
Right.
while, um, yeah, you see the nurses fighting over who ends
Mhm.
up having to do the full moon night
Yeah.
shift because it is not fun. It is a very difficult shift to
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
And typically people don't want to line up for that one because it's going to be tough. And we would literally sort of argue with, well, I did it last time. I don't get to do it for another 3 moons, and we'd be like
Yeah.
fighting over it. Really interesting
Mhm.
stuff. Nobody ever questioned it because the evidence was there right in front of us. I mean, we all knew what we knew. And
Mhm.
that was without getting into anything spiritual. That's just
Right.
straight up. The moon affects gravity. It affects the pull on the
Mhm.
ocean. It affects the water that's in our bodies.
Right.
It affects a lot,
Mhm.
and that is other forces, right? It's the
Right.
relation of where
Mhm.
the moon is compared to the earth and so on and so forth. There's a lot at play there that I don't understand all of the physics of
Yeah.
it. I don't need to. I know it's a thing. So
Right.
it's enough for me to have witnessed it and to experience it. I don't need to have all the explanations.
Yeah. So this is an interesting episode so far. I was just thinking because Mama Dragon here, and I'm actually getting really comfortable using the term, is bringing us down places where I wouldn't have gone. But since I'm not asserting control,
Excellent, excellent.
yeah, she gets to run the race. Because I wasn't really expecting to talk about dragons and their influence on spirituality.
No, but there are many, many people who are very attached to dragons
Yeah.
and
Oh, I'm
and
one of them. Yeah.
and to the concept of dragons, to however they view dragons. Like there's many, many people. And if you look at the stories of dragons over the
Mm.
centuries, this didn't come out of the air. It
Right.
came from somewhere, and it's a real presence in the world. Like there's no you can ignore it if you like, but you can't reasonably deny it.
Yeah.
So I find that so interesting. And for me, dragons have always been wonderfully comforting.
Mm.
And some kids, for example, would want a teddy bear. I never did. I want my dragon. Thank you.
Right.
Like I don't need a teddy bear. It's not going to do anything for me.
Mm.
But give me my dragon. That's
Yeah.
that's going to do the things.
Yeah, she's fun to work with.
Good.
Yeah, that's the one, when I was showing you there in my scribblings of my automatic writing, and you got the icons with the little red hearts there. That's her.
Aha.
That's the one running the episode. So it wouldn't surprise me that she gave me the lover's card to choose. That doesn't surprise me in the least bit. Doesn't surprise me. The rebirth thing doesn't surprise me. When it pulled it and you said it was rebirth, I was like, yeah, that sounds like something a message she's trying to get across. Because we really are looking at, like, I'll be honest, people listening, this is my current spiritual work is a rebirth, basically.
And for those listening, I had the Living Altar, which is
Yeah.
a set of cards that I was directed to offer to
Yeah.
Danielle before we began.
That's right, before we
And
recorded. That's right.
the one that he selected was
Mm.
Rebirth. And so, yeah, we figured that would show up at some point.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny because, well, and I'll share this with people, right? Because I shared already about starting to work out, or I think I did. Anyways, I shared it like a million places already in the last few weeks, last couple of weeks. But my whole goal several years ago was just to strip down, doesn't matter what gets wrecked or damaged, and then get rid of all the things I don't need and then start over again. What I wasn't anticipating was gaining weight in that time. But when you're getting rid of everything, some consequences occur. And one was I gained weight, and of course I got out of shape. But when you're trying to strip down, you're not going to be in perfect health in the first place. So now I'm on the road of rebuilding, both physically, psychologically, spiritually. Actually, they've handled that. I've done actually a lot of there's been a lot of spiritual adjustments along the road, some widening of my chakras so I can use more of my energy. And that on its own is an interesting journey. If you ever want to train with me, just for that alone, that's the reason to sign up and train with me. But the class isn't officially being offered. I'm just doing the testing of it, right? Just finishing the testing to see how I can do it online instead of because they're pushing for online.
Mhm.
I always view myself as anyways, for my own personal amusement, I view myself as a curmudgeonly teacher, with the slapping the student, no, do it again. Ah, why aren't you listening? Not that I would ever do it that way. That's not how I've ever taught anyone anything. I've always taught with empathy and sympathy and paying attention to how they flow. It's always been a way, but I've always been doing it in person, right? So I can watch how their body reacts when the energy gets into them, the little twitches, so I can
Mhm.
see where their flow is strongest and where they react first. And I can't do that online. So I have to trust completely that the spirits they're working with are going to do the job I'm instructing or that they're telling me to instruct.
This is where your
Yeah.
intuition kicks in.
Yeah.
I find intuition works very well online
Mm-hmm.
and can be a great guide. I use it all the time. Um, and it doesn't fail. It's really good. So even when you can't see the body language that you want to see, and
Right.
believe me, as a behavior analyst, I like to see body language.
Right.
It's 80% of what's going on. But if you can't, then harnessing intuition and allowing that to guide the direction you're moving can be
Mm-hmm.
tremendously helpful. That can be really good. And a point I want to make to anybody listening who's kind of really focused in on spiritual path right now is Don't be tempted to give up the physical work that you need to do to maintain the body you're in, because
Right.
that happens a lot. And it's a very frequent outcome of somebody who's so intently focused on their spiritual work that they forget about what's housing them. But you have to
Yes.
live in the body you're in.
Mhm.
So you kind of need to take care of it. And that is just throwing that out there. If it's something you're already neglecting, maybe rearrange
Mhm.
your priorities so that it could be fitted in, because it is what houses
Yeah.
you. So if you want to continue your experience for a while and keep learning the
Mhm.
things, then you better look at after your house.
Well, and that's exactly it because it's a major. It is definitely a component of what I'm teaching right now. And I've said this before. It's the what I thought was my purely meditation module in the program is actually also an exercise module at the same time.
Hmm.
Which I never looked at it that way, but it is. In fact, actually today when I was doing a class, that's what I was basically telling my student. Like, so there is, and to go back to my own interest in dragons, I started doing something called dragon dancing, which I later learned is the actual word for the thing. I thought I just put the name to the phenomenon myself and didn't really think about it. But it's basically when you let the energy flow through your body and you free flow and you move with the energy. So you can end up looking like you're dancing. Just depends on what you're like. Having done Tai Chi, having done martial arts, some of my moves resemble martial arts moves. But really, because especially with Tai Chi, you're really dealing with your chi, so your energy flow. And just
Hmm.
as an aside, when I was doing the Tai Chi classes, the whole class, like to me, the whole room was just lit up with people's spiritual energy. When I was in the class, I'm like watching people, I'm like, wow, this exercise is working because like everyone is lit up.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that part of I think Mama Dragon wants me to market a little bit. This is probably why we're going back to this a few times. So dragon dancing is part of the module, but it's an exercise like because I've doing it, I've gotten to intensities where I break out in a sweat and you're like, you got to slow yourself down to catch back your breath until your breath catches up with you.
Well, you know what comes to mind is the whirling dervishes.
Yes.
You know,
And
that's
yes, it does connect because that's one of the things as I was starting doing it, it's one of the things that popped up. I had learned about the whirling dervishes and I was like, oh, I can see why that happens.
uh-huh. There's a lot of dances like that.
Mm,
I mean, in Judaism,
mm,
there are dances that are very much, there's a lot of dancing
mm,
actually. People don't necessarily realize that. And a lot of it is twirling
yeah,
and it's very joyful.
mhm,
But that motion it translates to a lot of different areas of practice, shall we say. A
mm,
lot of people use that differently. And it's a great way to get into trance, for example.
yes,
It's not by any means the only way, but sometimes doing that twirling, that repetitive motion
mhm,
will get you into a trance state. You just got to be sure that that's the path for you, that's
mhm,
the one you want to do. And I'm also reminded not of dance, but of movement. Vipassana
mm,
meditation, which is taught
mhm,
by Theravada monks, you can sit and you can do that meditation, absolutely. But they also have a walking
mm,
meditation, and it's incredibly hard to do in the beginning because the degree of focus and awareness that you need is mind blowing. And you can
mm,
break out a sweat just with the concentration of what you have to focus on. But if you need movement in order to meditate, walking meditation, Vipassana, can be very useful.
yeah,
It's a different output of energy though. It's far more intensely focused. Um, so you're less going to get into a trance with that, but it's an intense focus. So there's
yeah,
so many ways to
yeah.
move and
And
get to a space.
you say this, and I'm going to share this. And people who live in the same town that I do, you're not going to find it because I haven't done this in a while. But having, because most of my meditation is through movement, and it is, and I do play with energy while I'm doing it. So there are sometimes when I've walked over a place a lot of times, I get sucked into the path that I took over and over again. Where like even if I had intended to go walk on the other side of the street, sometimes I'll get pulled into the channel of energy I've made because I
Mm.
kept reinforcing it over and over again.
Which is what I was saying earlier on
Yeah.
about when you have an icon of some description and you focus on it and your intention goes there, and many, many people do that, it
Yeah.
becomes a channel, becomes a path that's you tap into that and whoosh, off you go. Which is when I got that understanding of why the St. Joseph thing, I was like, oh, okay, now I understand. Until that switch flipped, if you will.
Mm.
I was sort of looking at it and just thinking, really? This sounds, it's so funny, this experience, but
Mm.
I'm listening to it and thinking, this sounds kind of hokey. Like, really?
Mm.
And then when I was able to move it to a place that many people would think was hokey, I was like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. Now it's
Mm.
okay. So kind of interesting where our different paths lie and what works and what doesn't. But that was kind of amusing to me that that shift needed to happen for me to be able to say, "Oh, I get it now. I see
Yeah.
how it works.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool."
You know, if you were a client of mine, I would tell you to go woohoo because you learn
Right?
to reinforce the discovery because but that's it. Like that's one of the things I'm trying to get when people take my course. I want them to understand. It's that these things are universal. It's because
Uh-huh.
there's a different name put to the people. Like, what was I
I'm
gonna say?
usually pretty open. That
Yeah.
one showed up
Mm.
a block that I had.
Mm.
And so it was a very
Mm.
specific thing that I needed to move past. But
Well,
when I did, it was like, oh, gotcha. You know, the way sometimes a thing can be explained to you five
mm,
different ways, and on the sixth it lands.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I see. And
You know.
then whoever's been explaining it to you says, this is the sixth time. What
Hmm.
didn't you get? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, you said it differently. It's just this came from a different place,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, no. I mean, I wanted to understand it, and so the understanding came.
Hmm.
If you
And
don't particularly want to understand because you think you know,
hmm.
then the understanding won't come because you didn't open the door.
Yeah. You know, when we hit this topic, especially when you said that, what I get in my head is so there's a central origin point. We'll call it because the way it's being shown to me visually is a ball of light, and then there's light emanating forward, but it gets separated, right? And branches out. And because it's the mama dragon showing me, so I'm seeing a lot of dragons going along the lines. That's actually when I said, you know, you have to look at the entity you're dealing with. Kind of came from the because religions, the magical practices all came from this origin point of interactions. If you can interact, you can get the thing done, but you have to learn how to interact. You have to learn how to use your energy. And then it becomes the different traditions. Like
Hmm.
I had said in a previous episode, right? I'm only teaching the fundamentals. What you go from when you're done training with me, what traditions you want to take after that, you want to go in and you want to become an expert on chakras, you want to do the whole acupuncture meridian lines and learn those, you want to do whatever it is you're looking to do after, that's up to you. I've just given you the fundamentals to use your energy properly in that for those things and give you the awareness to pay attention to how things flow. But that's it. That's all I'm doing. And then you're going out into the world and you're doing whatever you want to do. You can add to whatever I show you. You can take some other tradition and really work with it. It doesn't matter, but it comes from that one source of understanding. Again, from mom, but I don't disagree. So she's not even letting me finish that statement. But what the hell was it? No, I lost it in her telling me that.
The
You
divergent
need the
paths.
dragon's understanding. That's what she's saying.
Ah,
You need the dragon's understanding, which basically means because the way these are her words. The dragons are the spiritual teachers of humanity. And so you have to have the dragon's understanding to do magic, to do any spiritual stuff. You need that understanding. Therefore, there you go, people. Think like a dragon. Maybe
Are
I'll
you going
change
to
the
change the
podcast name.
podcast name?
Yeah, think like a dragon. It's the you need the dragon. Well, no, but it actually solves a mystery for me, or it solves a question I had because I'm trying to figure out. Because at some point in my life, right, I'm just like dragons are just mythology. There's nothing, whatever. But when you hear enough stories around the world, I'm not talking about like Smog from Lord of the Rings or something like that, but like actual dragons in their spiritual sense. They're the species that teaches humanity spirituality. So, but that explains why serpents and serpent-like creatures are found universally around the world to show you the flow of energy. That's what
Right.
dragons do. They're the teachers of the flow of energy. There we go.
I would love to hear how this lands for people.
Mm. I would actually like to hear that too, which brings us to the assignment.
Ta-da-da.
Tell us, share. No, that's not even the word either. I think it's yours, Michaela. Give her. It's your
Are you
assignment to give
sure?
again. It's
Are
your
you
assignment to
sure?
give again.
Okay. So my assignment's going to be, sorry, but it's all about control.
Mm. Doesn't have to be for me specifically. It can be for.
No, but that's what's coming up in the last few
Yeah.
times it's been control. So it's still control.
All right.
But
Well, no, that's
where
fine. That's good.
the question is, where do you think you don't have a choice?
Mm. Yeah, that sounds like
Different.
her. That sounds like Mama Dragon.
Yeah. Where do you think you don't have a choice? Because that's going to be where the good stuff lies.
Where do I think I don't have a choice?
Hmm. And that can show up in some interesting places. For example, and I want to give this example
Right.
so that um, the diversity is
Mhm.
illustrated a little bit. So, for example, if you suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out,
Right.
a lot of people do these days. It's intentionally generated. It's in the field,
Mhm.
right? But if you suffer from FOMO, do you have a choice in that? Or is it something that you can't control? You're just going to respond to it. So, for example, if you have to have the latest um, book on dragons, I don't know,
Mhm.
if you have to have the latest of something,
Right.
uh, when Pokemon was a thing in the 90s, do you have to
Mhm.
have all the Pokemon? Why? Where does the control sit there?
Mm.
And do you feel that you don't have a choice? So, because we'll often tell ourselves, as I said, reasoning versus reasonable. We'll
Right.
often tell ourselves, oh, I choose that. But do you? If it's something you feel you have to do, why do you feel like you have no choice? Where does that sit? And where does that come from? What voice do you hear when you hear that lack of choice? Because there
Right.
is one and it's not yours.
Mm.
So that's the assignment is where do you think you don't have a choice?
Mm. You know what? I want to play a game for a second. Sorry. I'm calling it a game. Let's
Okay.
see. Just trying to sense this out here.
This is not a break in the podcast, so don't
No,
run away.
this is the joys of channeling. Sometimes you get quiet.
Uh-huh.
So, other than the Mama Dragon, there's another spirit present right now. I guess the question will be, what do you think its function is? And that's a really broad one to ask. If it helps, it's like over the shoulder.
The function of
This spirit here. I
okay.
just, it doesn't matter. If you get it right, you get it right. If you don't, that's fine.
Okay.
But this guy here, yeah, identifies as male, as a male presenting spirit, male energy using spirit. Apparently, I have to get out of the way. Can you feel it out? I don't know if you can feel it out. I don't. Yeah, dead air always good for a podcast, but
No, I'm just thinking
yeah,
you're really going to have to do the visuals on this at some point.
yeah. So yeah,
Although these are long podcasts, so I'm not sure anybody will be able
yeah.
to watch for that long, but
No.
just have the
Well,
option.
yeah, because we'd still just be both sitting here staring at the screen, so it's not.
So what do you think the function is?
Yeah. If
Hmm.
it helps, it's actually connected to me with a silver cord.
Maybe the question is yours.
Yeah. Oh, I already know what it is. We've already had this discussion at length, but it makes sense that it's here right now.
Right. Well, I don't think it's my question.
No,
No.
because this actually we've discussed this entity actually. I think it's the one that's really weird looking. That I said like if people could see it, would be like, whoa, what the hell is that? It makes no sense whatsoever visually.
You mean like a giraffe?
Yeah,
They don't make any sense visually.
but it makes sense that it's here, that it showed up when we were talking about this topic because it actually does run a few. Is that the word I want to use? Diagnostic. It ties into the rebirth. It's monitoring the process.
Okay.
It's keeping track of what needs to be shed, what doesn't need to be shed.
Okay.
It's an interesting little creature.
So perhaps the question doesn't tie to the
No,
one that I put out there. It's a separate thing.
maybe.
I
Hmm.
think so. I'm not getting that it's connected.
Hmm. Interesting, and it's still
I,
here
I
though.
could be wrong, but
Hmm.
that's I just say it how I
It
get
doesn't
it.
have to be an answer here in the episode if you don't want. It can be something you can contemplate. If it continues to speak to you, I don't know if it will, but I will say this. I've already told Michaela before because Michaela asked, if I needed help with anything else other than the podcast. And I said, trust me, you being on the podcast is definitely your thing for helping me. And now that some episodes have gone by, you're starting to see where that that makes sense.
Right. It's we never know where this is going to go, and always trust that this is one of those things of control, right? There's no control over where these go, they just go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, the most energizing way to approach it is just it goes where it goes, and I'll be as interested as anybody to see what that looks like.
Mm. Well,
Possibly more, but
yeah. Well, I mean, you're in it, so for sure.
right. But I mean, the lack of knowing, I don't think we know where things are going any more than the listener does.
No.
So that can be such an interesting experience. And where else in your life do you have things where you don't know where it's going, but you trust that it's going
Mm.
and you just do it anyway?
Yep. In
Uh,
some ways, I almost want to say the difference between being or awakening spiritually, or being spiritually awakened and not being spiritually awakened is that when you're not spiritually awake, you don't realize you're floating on the ocean and the waves are butting you around and throwing you and pushing you in direction. When you're spiritually awake, you see the ocean. You know the ocean is there. So this invisible thing that's moving you around, you're aware of it. But you still don't know everything about it and you still don't know what its intentions are, where it wants to send you. You just know that if you go with the flow of the waves, you have a better chance of succeeding. And even if you're not aware of even if you can't perceive the waves, you're still perceiving their effect on you.
that I think is that's the larger point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of how I teach people to sense the flow in the first place. I'm like, first, let's look at its effect on you. Just like if you grabbed like a live wire, we can't sense electricity, but we can sense what it's doing to our body. So that's how you first have an understanding of it's your first step into being able to pick up on electricity when you don't know it's around.
We need to do your human design.
Yes.
We do. Because the I mean, yes, I've
Mm-hmm.
seen your chart
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot going on there, which there would be,
Mm-hmm.
that's anticipated. But what I haven't looked at is the themes.
Mm-hmm.
And themes are something that I don't know anybody else doing human design that does themes.
Right.
There may be. What I'm saying is I haven't come across it. And it's a thing, it's like rivers in your design
Right.
that I can't not see. They're simply there. They're so obvious I can't not see them. Um, and that is a source of extra information, shall we say, in your case anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and information in most people's cases of where to tap into the greatest flow and the consistent flow from many points, not just here's your overall type and therefore da da da. Because yes, that's the thing and it's great, but it's a big umbrella. It's
Yes.
it's it's a starting place. It's by no means indicative of anything else, honestly. It's a starting place. And the good stuff is when you get down to the small details
Yeah.
and the themes. So
Mm-hmm.
and I have a feeling the themes are going to be very interesting for you and maybe obvious, but maybe there's something in there that isn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. But it's it works also with what you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I should have a conversation off podcast
Yeah.
about how that could work together because when you're getting somebody in touch
Mm-hmm.
with how the flow affects them,
Mm-hmm.
human design can fast track a bunch of that to getting you into, okay, I recognize this because I can give the signposts from it. And
Yes.
it's just such I think it would be a really cool addition to what you do. And I'm honestly not saying this to try
Well,
to sell something.
because I'll be honest
It's,
with you, in
it's
one
just
of the
there.
things, like, so we both do Wild Fit and we have a section for us coaches to discuss things. And there was a topic that was posted, and I actually did finish off. I responded to a response with the final idea is that maybe it's time for me to learn human design
Ah, okay.
because of like I generally have the flow of people. When I meet them, I generally have an understand. Like people don't surprise me very often. Not because I can name you when I first see them every little thing, but when certain events come up, I'm like yeah, with their flow, I would have this is to be expected. Like, but I don't have a name for any of the behaviors or a strict or a
Structure?
yeah, a structure. In the wild, I would easily survive and the skill would easily take me to where I need to be. But if you're looking in a world where people like precision and like to have more clarity, then it's probably time for me to learn human design.
Hmm.
Really one of the things I was thinking about.
It
And
it is a fascinating area. So, and totally didn't mean to go down that path, but at the same time, the thing about people's flow came up and I just have this
yeah.
visual of rivers and it's like it's always with the rivers. But
Mm-hmm.
the river when it's within its banks and
Mm-hmm.
it's flowing unimpeded is a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it has power and it has purpose and it has direction and it's getting where it's going. So maybe that's why I have that visual. I'm not quite sure, but it came unbidden, as it were, and it has stayed very strongly. And typically, a person will have two to three significant rivers, and
Right.
there might be a minor tributary,
Mm-hmm.
but the big ones are the key. And if you want to focus on one, then the one that has the tributary would be probably the one. But that second part's not really as interesting to me. It might be to the individual, but I'm looking at okay, these tracks, these
Mm-hmm.
rivers are utterly fascinating because just like if you step into fast flowing water, you're not standing still anymore, are you?
No.
Whoosh, off you
Yeah.
go. And that's what's going on.
Mm.
And when you can step in with confidence because you know it's there,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very different experience. So yeah, it's I'd be very interested to see
Mm.
how you respond to that and how you dealt with that. That's and it really is like it's a thing. You know, somebody asked me once, how
Mm.
do you how do you respond to people who say it's nonsense, it's
Mm.
not real? And I don't know, at the time, the person asking me the question on a podcast um,
Mm.
struck a discord with me
Mm.
with that question. And I just kind of leaned back and I don't think I'm usually cocky, but at this point I said, I don't give a damn. I don't have to explain anything to anybody, especially not this. This is just you learn it, you experience it. I don't have to explain it, right? And the person looked really kind of, whoa, okay. But and I don't know where that came from. And I said it with a little more oomph than I just
Mm.
said it now. But yeah, that was the thing. It stayed with me because I'm a little puzzled by it myself as to why
Right.
I would go into that grr kind of energy. But it's yeah,
Yeah.
I the only time I've ever had anybody question the human design that I've been telling them about is I immediately stopped and asked them to let's go back and look at the data. And they'd used the wrong timing, the wrong
Mm.
clock. And so we were
Yeah.
out by 12 hours. And I just said, okay, let's redo. Let's go
Mm.
again. And then it was fine. It worked out just perfectly. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
calculations involved.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up, right? I know from my own spiritual development that like people would say, "Oh, do a reading or something." I'm like, whatever. And then I'll say stuff, and then they'll go, "Oh, that's not true. That's not true." I'm like, "Well, whatever." And then like 6 months, a year later, "Oh no, you were right." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, where was that energy 6 months ago when you were yelling at me saying this was all bullshit?"
Yeah, I haven't had anybody yell at me about that yet. And it can always happen, but
Well, sometimes when
um,
when you step on when you touch on a point people don't want out, or
mm,
you hit a nerve.
typically I will find the gift that's been hidden under the stories.
Yeah.
That's my focus too, is, typically the thing that you've been told is wrong about you
Mm.
is actually your gift. And
Yeah.
so presenting that in a way to somebody that they can accept about
Mm.
themselves, that is a challenge. But it's one I happily accept
Yeah.
because it's game changing when that person
Yeah.
realizes that, wait a minute, I've spent my life thinking that that was wrong, and they have a period of intense irritation, maybe anger, sadness, all those things. And then they, have an opportunity to start using the thing that they haven't been using yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it would, again, transition beautifully into the work that you do. I see that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing because I was almost tempted to make it a requirement to train with me is for people to get their human design done.
Oh, there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
There really is. Um, and I've done human design with a couple, and
Mm-hmm.
they were talking about divorce and really having a hard time with each other.
Yeah.
And well, it took 3 months, and they were back right on track, better than they had been before, because they both had a better understanding of what each other needed energetically. And they're
Mm-hmm.
doing great now. They're doing really well. Like a year and a half later, they're doing absolutely fine. Um, knowing what you're dealing with and how you're talking to them can make a massive difference. Like if you're a manifester, I'm going to talk to you
Mm-hmm.
in a very different way to a projector. And if you're a reflector, oh, clear the room. We're going to do a whole different thing here.
Yeah.
This is not the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it makes a difference, really does. So, yeah, you might want to consider including that.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like I include the wild fit component in my teaching. So to get where people are with their ability to recognize themselves, especially how they eat, because that's how your body works. If you can't feed
Right.
yourself properly, right? You can't keep yourself healthy, your cells won't help you use energy as well. So you
Yep.
need that. So that shows me already, whoever's working that I'm working with, how they react to situations, especially difficult ones, because changing your food habits or even looking as to why you eat certain foods can be very challenging. It can violate all kinds of strongly held beliefs. So that's the first module, just to give me a sense of where people are and just to help people learn to move through their biases, their prejudices, their all those things, all those wonderful things that we build negatively over the years, especially around food. And then that carries on into the next course where we can then do some really deep stuff with that discovery. But having human design is also a very good one, even just to start with, as just to begin the course before even jumping in, to have an idea of where to put your energies. But again, just not a but a but.
And
Because it ends up being not so much me that teaches as it is the spirits who want to work with the people, and then I just provide the voice for them. I do worry it's overkill, but it's not, because if nothing else, for me, it works as a person. It
maybe
works
you don't have to do all of it.
no. I already know I'm not doing all of it.
So
That's this is
that's
my big understanding so far, and it's why you giving the assignments of giving up control make it easier for me to understand how this course works. It's the like I said today, you know, I taught half the class, and then the spirit
right.
said, "Okay, now you're done. You can go and do whatever you want. The student is ours now." And then they
Uh-huh.
went and did their stuff, which is something I wouldn't have done. So normally,
Something to hear back about later.
yeah,
By the way, 2 minutes.
okay. But you know what? Let's see. Let's check with the producer. Actually, she's good with ending now.
Okay.
We've covered enough. She got to speak on behalf of dragons and their their
We covered a
spiritual work.
lot.
Hmm?
We covered
Yeah,
a lot, and
we did.
I had no intention of talking about human design, but it just those rivers came up, and it was like, okay, here we go.
Just
You
so
need
you know,
rivers.
you talking about human design was going to be a thing. You had
Okay.
already decided that you were going to talk about it.
Oh, that's okay, cool.
I already knew this
It's
was coming. So
it's something that I love to do. Just like it's not an effort for me. It's just I'm in flow when I'm doing that. Like
yeah.
this one of the
Oh,
things
yeah.
that I do
Mhm.
that's I'm here to do.
Mhm.
So it's fun.
Yeah. So we're going to end on that one. The assignment is once again for me, which is fine. And the rest of you get to learn what it's like, even when you do officially have a title like wizard. You don't have all the wisdom in the universe. You have a lot, but you still have things to learn. You still have things to do. And as the cards pulled said, I'm in a rebirthing process. So it
You
works
know,
out that
it's
I need to learn more things and to, yeah, learn. Learn is the key word.
I think it's important to know that you know enough that you don't know enough. That's
Yeah.
like that's the best thing I think anybody can come from
Yeah.
is knowing that no, I barely scratch the surface, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much. I have certificates, I have degrees, I have all these pieces of paper that I can waft around and do things with, like whatever. But it doesn't actually mean anything in great depth. It's just it's a thing that marks a certain activity. It's no more important than that.
Yeah. It is funny though. It does at least show you exponentially how little you know. You think you don't know six, and then suddenly you don't know and then you learn one thing, and then you don't know 36, and then you learn another thing, and you don't
Right.
learn whatever. Anyways,
Yep.
I'm good at math, but not that good, and especially not that good in English. But that's a weird linguistic thing that happens when people know more than one language.
Right.
So, but we'll end it here. But this is a good episode, and we did give a lot, so maybe just we'll cut it here and let you guys process what's going on in this episode. Maybe let's do it more than once, just to really get it. I know Mama Dragon would be really excited if you listen to it more than once.
And I will be massively impressed. Not that that needs to make a difference, but it's a thing. I'll be
I will actually
massively
be too.
impressed that you've listened this far. This is so cool.
Yeah,
But it's out there. It's in the field.
yeah. All right. So once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
And I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time.
Until next time.